Today on Future Sport, heavyweight boxer Ken Norton joins us. What a puncher he is. And our computer analysis zeroes in on world-class technique of one of America's premier shot putters, the mighty Al Feuerbach. He's going for Los Angeles gold. Yes, power and computers are the names of the Future Sport game today. And speaking of power, we'll take an inside look at one of the great tennis serves in the game. Roscoe Tanner's, of course, all coming up on today's edition of Future Sport. Welcome back to Future Sport. Well, a lot of people have their own little crystal ball. This one you can't see through, weighs 16 pounds, and some people spend a lifetime throwing it around for a living. Actually, the man sitting next to me, Al Feuerbach, glad to have you with us, buddy.
Thank you.
Why have you spent so much of your life throwing a 16-pound ball?
Well, I think the object, Vic, is to throw it farther than you've ever thrown it before. And this creates a challenge that it goes beyond just developing technique for throwing. It gets into the area of developing strength to make that 16 pounds feel lighter. It gets into the area of nutrition, psychology, and I think it's just an all-consuming challenge.
Well, you know, somebody once told me that you have a post office curriculum in the first grade, but you could also teach the post office curriculum when you're a senior in high school. And what you just told me is you can get into physics, into geometry,
Absolutely.
You can get into nutrition and everything with this. And so the challenge is also just inside yourself. How has science changed how people throw this 16-pound shot?
Well, what it's done is it's made technique a much more constant factor in the event. Americans for many years were throwing on feeling, and then these Germans and Russians started ruling the event, even though we have greater talent involved in the event. And the reason they did that was because of their studies of biomechanics, I think. They were able to bring an athlete to the right positions in the throw a little more consistently. But it's something that can easily be overcome in this country.
Science, you always have to pay a price for progress. Somewhere when you're doing the experimentation, someone's going to take gas, someone's going to be hurt. Now, I heard you were trying a new little project where you're jumping up and off of boxes, trying to get some new strength, some new technique. What happened?
Well, that's called plyometrics, and the Russians have done a great deal of research in it, and it's also called depth jumping. Jumping from high boxes, reacting very forcefully the moment you hit. And I was going through about a 2-hour workout twice a week last fall, and my perfect knees were suddenly ruined, and at least for the time being. And I think that was an experiment that obviously didn't turn out well, but it goes to show you that I don't believe that people of our size, of our strength, of our body weight should be doing that amount of work in that particular area. Jumping is only slightly important.
Al, you weigh 250 pounds or more, or close in that area. Now, how many calories do you have to consume a day to keep that body weight up to make you an efficient thrower?
Well, when I'm training hard, I eat well over 6,000, sometimes up to 8,000 calories a day.
Well, is that in all candy bars?
Oh, no, I don't eat that type of item these days. Actually, it's all in good foods, and that's the difficulty in getting that many calories, is eating dairy products and meats and vegetables and fruits, and getting that many calories. It has to be good food.
The scientists are involved, psychologists are involved. We know more about the brain, we know more about the athletes know more about themselves, which all boils down to someday somebody's going to throw this thing a heck of a lot further. 10 years from today, how far do you think a man's going to be able to throw this 16-pound shot?
Well, Vic, I wouldn't make a fool out of myself by predicting, but I'm certainly sure that it's going to be farther than the present world record, and it could well be somewhere between 75 and 80 feet, but I won't put my finger on a distance.
What are your chances for 84?
As far as 1984 for myself, I'll be 36 years old. I think in recent years, people like Al Oder in the throwing events, and a lot of the East Europeans have been winning their gold medals at a later age. Not Al, but some of the others have won their gold medals when they're 36, 38. And I don't think that it's a disadvantage whatsoever. I think, indeed, it's probably an advantage given the athlete is healthy, takes good care of himself, is in good condition. I think it's an advantage.
Yes, it won't be an advantage for competitors trying to top the Olympic form of Al Feuerbach at age 36. He's looking to 84. And speaking of advantages, Frank Shorter has one for runners.
Vic, today's running tip is for those runners who've been entering races, have been training on a regular basis, 6, even 7 days a week, and they want to improve their racing times. How do I get faster? The person feels like he or she has reached a point of diminishing return in their training. Well, the answer is to do some speed training, what are called intervals. You only need to do them about once a week, and all it is that you break down a distance of perhaps 3 miles, 2 miles to start with, and run quarter miles around a track, 300-yard runs around a field. Run them at a pace faster than you want to run in your race, and then rest as little as possible in between each interval. So for example, if you're running 2 miles worth of quarter miles, that's 8 quarters. You would run 8 times around the quarter-mile track, jog and rest until you feel you can start the next one and still go at a pace faster than you want to run in your race. You run 8 of them, then maybe the next week you try it again and you run a little faster. This will improve your racing. The difficulty here is that it's a very personal thing. You either have to have a coach to help you with this or you have to develop a feel for yourself of just how much you can stand, how little rest you need to do. But this is what all the good racers do to improve. The nice thing about it is you can still go out and run your easy runs. 80% of your running can be at a very slow pace.
Thank you, Frank. Later today on Future Sport, we'll almost trade punches with Ken Norton. But coming up next, a scientific look at tennis with a tip for you players on how to improve the serve. From the serving master himself, Roscoe Tanner. Welcome back to Future Sport. Now it's time to meet the man who's finished in the top 10 in the world for 10 consecutive years.
With us today on Future Sport, fastest gun in the West. That's fastest serve in the world, Roscoe Tanner. Roscoe, nice having you with us.
Thanks, it's great to be here.
How'd you get started in tennis, Roscoe?
Well, when I was 6 years old, my dad wanted me to be able to learn how to play tennis, just so that I could play, like if I became a lawyer or something like that, to do after work as a social game. And there was about 4 or 5 of us that started taking lessons together in tennis. We did Little League baseball, we played football together and everything else. And we were very competitive. And we just started playing tennis together and really enjoyed it and played all the time.
You go all over the world, the first thing people ask you, serve, we want to see that 150-mile-an-hour serve or whatever. Does that put a little pressure on you because it's kind of nice to be noted for forehands, backhands, volleys, and other things?
But to me, anytime anybody notices you as having something that's the best in the world or near the best in the world, I can't complain. So just the fact that in my business, if they're talking about me, that's good. And the fact that they're saying it's the best, I really get a great deal of satisfaction out of that because I spent a lot of time working on it. And also, I know that you can't win with the serve alone, and so I'll let my ranking say whether I can do some of the other things.
An article was printed in one of the major newspapers and magazines saying, hey, I can predict, this man said, if Roscoe Tanner plays on this particular surface, he will win, and automatically if he goes on another surface, he will lose in a major event in the semis or finals. Is that true?
I don't think so. I think probably my record has been inconsistent, so it's hard to say, to make those sort of predictions on me, because most people say that I can't play on clay, and yet I've won tournaments on clay over players that are supposed to be specialists on that surface. I played one tournament in Cincinnati on clay where I beat Solomon and Dibbs, and I'm not supposed to be able to play on clay. So I think for me it's more a thing of my mental attitude when I go on the court. If it's on clay, am I going to be patient enough to not make the errors? My natural tendencies are when I see a shot that I can go for to be a winner, I'll go for it. And as a result, I'll make some errors that I shouldn't make, maybe a low margin of error. But also, that's the way I enjoy the game. And to me, I play the game for enjoyment first. I feel very fortunate because I've made a lot of money at it.
You know, when you serve and everybody's throwing that big cannonball, or at least saying you're throwing the cannonball, they want to know how much power that body's putting into the ball. We have a way in our laboratory of measuring precisely how much power is going into that thing by measuring the forces going through the ground. So we're going to go in right now and take a look at how you serve and how many forces go through the ground with Dr. GIDEON ARIEL.
Perfect.
All right. All right, Roscoe, what we want to do now is to measure how much force you're able to throw into that serve. And Dr. ARIEL's inside on his magic machine.
All you got to do is come up, hit your regular serve, stand on this force plate. Whatever goes through the ground is going into the serve. Anytime you're ready. All right, let's take a look. Gideon?
Well, Vic, this is amazing. Look on Roscoe Tanner how much force it generates on the ground. 349 pounds. Well, some people might say, why 349 pounds on the ground? I am generated on the rocket. Well, anything you generate on the ground has to come to the rocket and vice versa. Newton knew that long time ago. Action and reaction. 349 pounds, Roscoe Tanner weigh only 175 pounds. So all the forces going down has to come up.
349 pounds, that's amazing, man. How much you weigh?
170.
Gideon's right on then. So that's 2 times body weight. So you put your foot against the force plate, you dig in, and you hit the ball 130, 140 miles an hour. That's amazing to me. You generate 349 pounds. As Gideon says, you shoot your cannonball by keeping your foot on the ground, and that's why, because you can't shoot a cannon out of a canoe. Anyway, Roscoe, great having you with us on Future Sport.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
From hard-serving Roscoe Tanner to our computer scientist, Gideon Ariel.
Vic, the most common injury in athletics and also in common life is the lower back pain. The question is why? Why the athletes have the lower back pain? We have shot putters, gymnasts, and discus throwers and runners. A lot of them, great percentage of them, say we have a problem with our lower back pain. What is the reason? Well, obviously, if you carry your body mass, the whole trunk and the hip, and you have from the other side a pounding with the legs, and believe it or not, when you are running, you're pounding about 3 to 4 times your body weight. So if you weigh 200 pounds, you're creating about 600-700 pounds of force. Where all this force sum up? The force sum up right at the lower back. Now, with the general public, it's a little bit different story. The problem is that when people stop exercising, they have a terrible abdominal strength. In fact, they all try to develop a little belly. And when you have a very, very weak abdominal, you start sinking. And when you start sinking, all the pressure again is on the back. So the reason is the same. For the general public, the reason is from weakness. For the athlete, it's because the pounding and hitting the ground really hard in order to perform well. And all these forces are summed up right at the lower back. That's why the most common injury in athletics and with the general public is the lower back pain.
Thank you, Gideon. Well, this man is all too familiar with pain. A heavyweight boxing champion who battled Muhammad Ali 3 times. His career, like that of all boxers, bordered the fine line between sport and combat. One wrong reaction or lack of reaction can spell the difference between glory and pain. You'll meet Ken Norton when we come back. Welcome back. You know, I've been around some pretty famous people in my life, but I always wanted to get a chance to be around Ken Norton. Great opportunity for me, great opportunity for you, the viewer. Ken, great having you with us, buddy.
Good being here.
Now, I want to ask you some questions about yourself. Who are you? What's your background? And how'd you get into boxing, etc.?
Well, basically, I got involved in boxing when I was about 23 years old in the Marine Corps. It's a very late age to start, but then again, in high school and college, I was not introduced to boxing because in the city I lived in, which was a very small town in Illinois, Jacksonville, there was no boxing. All we had was basketball, football, track, baseball, and tennis. I was very fortunate that I had good training in the other sports, and the coordination from those sports helped me in boxing. My hand-eye coordination was fairly good, my hand speed was fairly good, and there were many things that in football and basketball and track and baseball that I could bring to boxing in the positive attitude, the preparation of. There were so many ways I could correlate to all of 3 of them to boxing.
If you hadn't gone into boxing, which one of those sports, baseball, football, and what track, what would you have been in?
I don't know. I probably would have been a policeman. Because after the Marine Corps, I went back home. I thought about going back home. If I went back home, I would have been stuck at home, probably as a policeman. And the reason I stayed in California, the reason I got involved in boxing, was so that I figured, hey, if I'm not good in boxing, I can't open up doors that ordinarily wouldn't be open. So I felt that by staying here and by doing things, by boxing, I would meet more people. I would find something that I would like to do.
Well, Ken, you've been out of boxing for about a year, but I know you're still fast. I know you're still powerful. And earlier this week, we got a chance to take a look at you, just how powerful and how much speed you have, even with a one-year layoff. Let's take a look. Well, as Ken punched the heavy bag while standing on the force plate, Dr. Gideon Ariel was able to measure the forces he exerted with a jab. Remember, as in every other sport, power comes from the ground up. So let's check in with Dr. Gideon Ariel.
Look at this, Vic. With his left jab, Ken Norton was producing 275 pounds. This is on one leg, on the front leg. This is over 500 pounds of force going right at the bag.
You know, Ken, I really appreciate how much force you get out of those legs, buddy. But why I'm tickled to death you're at the research center is because I always wanted to monitor how a big guy like you can make that blinding speed coming with your arms. Have you ever, up to this point, had any electronic measurement?
To this point, I have never tried it before.
All right, now you're going to get a chance to see what the measurement showed here at the research center.
Amen.
On this one, Ken, we checked you not only for power, but for hand speed.
Vic, this is the kinetic data for Ken Norton. Again, we look on the force curve, and what we're finding out here, that every time Ken Norton hit this bag, he can reach a force which is approximately 250, sometimes a little bit more, sometimes a little bit less, but every time he hit the bag, it's 250 pounds on one leg. Also, he can do it quite fast. We're finding out that he can do it almost as 10 times a second. Anybody that can do that 10 times a second with 250 pounds every hit should be in a great shape.
So, buddy, you've been pulling my leg. Gideon says you're still like a 20-year-old.
Looks can be deceiving.
But let me tell you, Ken, if you had had this machinery before, would that have changed your life, the way, the style, or anything about your boxing career?
I feel that this machinery and what you're doing here is very sophisticated. So therefore, having this sophistication added along with my regular training, having the scientific data along with my regular training, I feel I could have been about 50% better at least. I would have had to improve.
Well, buddy, now I'm going to put you on the hot seat because you're a television commentator. You watch boxing. Name me 4 things that you watch for as a commentator that you can throw back to the viewer.
Number 1 is the generalship of the individual in the ring, or of the opponents in the ring. Number 2 is how the guy is thinking in the ring. Is he setting traps? Is he going straight in? Number 3, the hand speed of the individual and the power of the individual. Number 4, if a guy gets hit with a very good shot, is he reacting to it? What does he do to react? Does his legs buckle? Does his knees move a bit? Or does he absorb it well and counter?
You know, Ken, on future sport, we talk a lot about the future sports. What about the future, Ken Norton?
Well, at the present time, I'm going to acting school. I've learned how to manage my own affairs, and that with the investments that I made prior to quitting or becoming a citizen, I am now handling that business also. So I've been very lucky, very fortunate.
Good. Thanks for being interested on future sport. I'm coming to you for a loan.
Well, that's good.
Future sport, we'll be right back. So that wraps up another edition of Future Sport. We hope you'll join us next week. And in the meantime, we hope you'll learn to relax a little bit. Because if you're going to enjoy our show with all that energy, people jumping and running and all kinds of sweating, then you got to get yourself ready. And there's nothing better than just take a little bit of that scientific data, which tells us about keeping your body cool. If you're going to relax, you've got to get some kind of refreshment that's going to increase the number of fast twitch, slow twitch fibers. And if you're going to get your head together, you're going to need some TV. Always remember some of those little ancillary things, because you got to see that set out there when it's sunny. And if it's too sunny for you, then I suggest you just get yourself a son who can keep you out of the sun. You got to learn to enjoy life. If you're going to join us again on Future Sport, we want you to be ready, full of energy. I'm Vic Braden for Gideon ARIEL, who's down working hard in the lab. See you next week.